This
Thank
conference
you all
will
for
now
coming
be
out tonight.
recorded.
I call this meeting a session. If I could get everybody to stand, and please remain standing. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you would please remain standing. Mr. Cole, would you please do an invocation for us, sir?
Most gracious Heavenly Father God, we thank you as always for allowing us to come here tonight and help us to go on the well. Pray, Father, that everything done here be will watch over all good and will watch over all the decisions that are made. That you will bless us, Heavenly Father. We thank you for everything you do for us. We thank you for everything you do. In Jesus' holy and precious name. Amen.
Thank you. If you would remain standing for a moment of silence for some of our neighbors who passed away. Maria Walker, Jen Felt, James Bott, please be thinking about the Hicks family. Thank you so much. Please be seated. If you would, check your phones. Make sure you got them on silent or off. And I'll ask any of the board members if they have an issue or a conflict of interest, please let it be known now with anything that is on the agenda. Next up is the adoption of the agenda as it is. A motion?
Make the motion to adopt the agenda.
Okay, second.
I'll second.
All in favor? Public comment. Anybody sign up to speak tonight, Heather? They didn't when I walked in. Okay, so no public comment. Planning board report. Is Sarah here?
Don't believe so.
Okay. Anything exciting happening at the planning board, Frank, you'd like to mention?
Yeah, I'll be happy to. So at the last planning board meeting, we talked about proposed changes to the town's stormwater management ordinance. I think I shared a copy of a draft with the board under separate cover several weeks ago. Planning board had a good discussion about that. We're trying to make some improvements to the ordinance that make the ordinance clearer, easier to understand, but also not burdensome on our property owners. So I'm going to take their feedback from the last meeting and update the draft and take it back to them at their meeting next Tuesday, where they'll discuss it some more. And you may possibly see that on your agenda on May the 8th.
Okay, thank you, Rob. Next up is the consent agenda. A motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor? Thanks, Phil. Next up is pre-positioned hurricane debris contracts. Brian, tell us all about it.
All right. So fortunately or unfortunately, it's just about hurricane season again. And want to make sure that the town is as prepared as possible to deal with any impacts that we might experience here in Cape Carteret. So the item you have before you tonight is actually two items to approve pre-positioned contracts for both debris collection in the event that a storm affects Cape Carteret and also debris monitoring. The first contract is for debris collection. The recommendation in your packet is to contract with a company called Southern Disaster Recovery, LLC. They're out of Greenville, South Carolina. There are a whole list of specified unit costs included in your agenda packet. But essentially, I think the key things that we would be interested in are the collection of construction and demolition debris, and also probably more so the collection of vegetative debris. In either case, they would come into town within 24 hours after notice to proceed from the town. They would begin collection activities. They would take that debris most likely to a county-sponsored debris disposal site on NC 58 up near Pelletier, where they've used in the past. You all may be familiar with the sites they've used in the past. The contract calls for a cost of $10.25 per cubic yard. That is most likely the element of the contract that we would activate if necessary after a storm. There's several other items included in there, most notably hazardous hanging limbs or any hazardous standing trees that the town could activate those portions of the contract if the need is there going forward. This contract is part of the state contract. To its credit, the state, I believe in 2019, undertook a competitive bid process where they essentially set these contracts up for local governments in North Carolina. Prior to that, I know many years in my work in Emerald Isle, we would go out on our own and solicit competitive bids for pre-positioned disaster debris collection contracts. The state now does that and basically makes that opportunity available to all cities and counties in North Carolina. So the recommendation for the board on the debris collection contract is simply for the Board of Commissioners to authorize a contract between the town of Cape Carteret and Southern Disaster Recovery at those specified unit costs, subject to all of the terms and conditions included in the state contract. And the key points are included in the board's agenda packet. It's important to note that this contract would only be activated if we have a storm that affects Cape Carteret this year. And most likely it would only be activated if we're declared a federal disaster area. There's probably a scenario where maybe we'd get a significant amount of hurricane debris, but it may not justify a federal disaster declaration. It would then be a judgment call whether or not to activate this contract and bring the contractor in to collect the debris. In that case, the alternative would be to have our own public works staff go around and collect that debris. So most likely it would be a federally declared disaster. We'd activate the contract, pay these unit costs, and then we would expect that all of our costs would be reimbursed by the Federal Emergency Management Agency and the state of North Carolina. The fact that we would set this contract up ahead of time,
This conference will now be recorded.
It basically takes all the stress out of this process. And the fact that it's put together by the state of North Carolina essentially makes pretty clear that we'll get the full reimbursement from FEMA if we do things correctly. The second contract that you have before you is for debris monitoring. Because FEMA has learned many lessons over the years with many disaster events, they have learned that it's important to monitor the debris collection contractors. So they recommend that we have a firm monitor the debris collection contractor, make sure that the volumes that are reported are accurate, make sure that there's no mixing of debris from different communities, anything that might be untoward, so to speak. The recommendation for you tonight is for us to contract with a company called Debris Tech. This is also a situation where the state has gone through a competitive bid process and they've evaluated different firms. Essentially, if the board approves a resolution tonight, you'd be authorizing Cape Carteret to contract with Debris Tech for those monitoring services. Again, already procured by the state, already put through a competitive bid process. We would also expect that all of those costs would be fully reimbursed by FEMA in the event that it is a federally declared disaster. There's various unit costs associated with that contract. They're mostly for different types of personnel that they might assign to our area. Ranges anywhere from $36 to $65 per hour and depends on really the severity of the storm, the volume of the debris, how many people they'll bring in. I met recently with representatives of both of these companies, had very good meetings with both of them, feel like they will give Cape Carteret the attention that we demand if and when we are impacted by a storm, and felt real good about both companies. So that's the recommendation for you tonight. Again, we'd only activate these if we are in fact impacted by a storm. And then secondly, if it's a federally declared disaster area, we'd expect full reimbursement from FEMA in the state of North Carolina. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Frank, I got a question. So the state is vetting all these companies now. Are these the only two companies that statewide? I mean, how did we end up with these two?
Yeah, great question. So the state actually went through a competitive bid process and had numerous bids that they reviewed. They awarded the contract to this company, Southern Disaster Recovery. In reality, what will happen is that if there is a storm event, Southern Disaster Recovery, they've already got many contracts lined up with all sorts of subcontractors from all over the state or all over from other states. They line that stuff up and then they will assign their subcontractors, some to Cape Carteret, maybe some to Morehead City or whatever other communities are affected. And then they also go through a process locally where if there are local contractors who are looking for work, they can go to Southern Disaster Recovery, and if they're willing to work for the unit prices that they're offering, they'll put them to work also. So they're bringing in trucks and crews from all over the place.
So they have vetted their sublet.
Correct.
Okay.
The state has vetted them, and they've vetted their subs, and then they'll still consider other subs if they're locals and want to work in the event of a storm.
Well, I know this is a lot easier process than we've been through in the past. We got burnt more than one time. So I'm happy with it. Just, if the state vets them, they got to be halfway decent anyway. So.
Yeah, and honestly, I really applaud the State Division of Emergency Management for going through this process. It's really a great service, particularly for smaller towns like us.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you.
Any other questions? We'll need 2 motions on this, right?
Correct.
One for each. All right, do we have a motion for the first one, authorizing the contract with Southern Disaster Recovery?
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Second.
I'll second.
All in favor? All right, and now a motion for the hurricane debris monitoring with Debris Tech.
I'll make that motion also.
Okay, all in favor? Thank you, John.
So thank you, and I will say that I hope we don't talk about either of these contracts again for another year. So that'll mean it was a good year for us.
Next up is a resolution authorized contract with BC3 Incorporated for managed information technology services.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you know, we talked about the town's information technology system at our budget planning workshop back in January. Something I've had several individual conversations with members of the board about the need to provide better IT services here in the town. Over the last several months, I've talked to several different companies that offer managed information technology services, and the recommendation for you is to execute a contract with BC3 Incorporated. They have locations in many areas. Their headquarters in Columbia, South Carolina, but they have an office in Raleigh, North Carolina. Recommending that the board authorize a contract with VC3 for the IT services. It comes at a cost of $7,312 up front. That's for all of the onboarding process, the data migration, all of the installation of the equipment, and then it's a $2,318 per month charge for a 5-year term. And that comes out to a total of $27,816 per year. Under this contract, essentially VC3 would handle everything associated with the town's IT system. First of all, we'd receive all new computer equipment for 9 town employees, all of the personnel in this building, 3 people in the police department, also our public works director, as well as the new town planner position that we're currently recruiting for. All new workstations, everything would be based in the cloud. VC3 would handle everything, all of the cybersecurity measures, all of the data management, all of the backups, all of the installation, all of the support. Hopefully nothing goes wrong in any significant way, but when it does, there's a person to call 24/7 who can help the town staff with whatever issue we may be experiencing. Essentially, it's a turnkey service. They are managing, hence the term managed information technology services. They're handling everything. It's essentially all handled off-site. They will come on site. They'll be here to set everything up, to train everybody. Occasionally, they will come on site if there's special issues that are going on. But a lot of it is done remotely, and they essentially handle everything. As part of the package, they also assign a dedicated staff person to be our virtual CIO, our Chief Information Officer. And so that person will report directly to the town manager, will essentially be the point person for all of our IT needs, will help us troubleshoot any problems, will help us identify any opportunities or strategies for the future, so that hopefully we've got good, reliable equipment, and ultimately we can provide the best possible customer service to our customers, hopefully find ways to make it easier for them to conduct business with the town. VC3 is a reputable company. They specialize in local government. They're a partner with the North Carolina League of Municipalities. Overall, I think they've got a little more than 1,100 different local governments that they're working with. Have a good track record. I have personal experience with them in the past, found them to be very responsive, very supportive of our staff. And so the recommendation tonight is for the board to consider a contract with VC3. Again, it's $2,318 per month. Comes out to $27,816. There is an initial cost of $7,312. I would expect that we would bear that cost in the current fiscal year, and we would start the monthly cost probably maybe in June, most likely July, and it would be in next year's budget. The budget projections that I shared with you all back in January included an allowance for this kind of contract. Obviously, we'll refine all the numbers and we'll present the recommended budget to you at the May meeting. But I think this is a good approach for the town. I looked at a couple of different companies, a couple of different strategies. Actually, there was a different strategy that I was more interested in with VC3, but it was probably another $7,000 or $8,000 a year, and I felt like this was a better approach for our organization, given the small size and the complexity, or the lesser complexity that we have here. So look forward to answer any questions that you may have, and appreciate you considering this item.
At the end of the 5-year term, do we keep the equipment, whether we renew it or not?
Yeah, so at the end of the 5-year term, we would most likely keep the equipment. Technically, they would be able to claim it. However, the contract does include perpetual replacement of the equipment. So, for example, if something breaks in the second year, they're going to replace it. If we need something new in the third year, they're going to replace it. So they own the equipment. They will perpetually replace that equipment and keep it in current good working order. My guess is if we get to the 5th year and there's limited value in the equipment, they probably would just write it off and provide it to the town, but technically it's theirs, they own it.
Do you need a budget amendment tonight?
Don't need a budget amendment tonight. We've got sufficient funds in the current year budget for the one-time cost of $7,300. The balance of it will include in next year's budget, and it won't hit, the expenses won't hit us till next fiscal year.
What kind of impact is it going to be? A minor impact on the 23-24 budget?
So it's a total of $27,816. I think.
Year.
Yeah, I think we can accommodate that in fiscal 23. That's yes, sir.
You sure?
That is my goal, and I will bring that to you in about 4 weeks. But the projections that I showed you back in January factored in something along these lines.
Okay. So Commissioner Morgan's question, do we own the equipment or not after 5 years?
Yeah, so we do not own the equipment at the end of the 5 years. Right. I think ultimately it's probably going to depend on where things stand at that point in time. It may be coming to the end of its useful life and they may tell us to keep it. It may be that it's still good stuff and they want it back. I wouldn't be overly concerned about that. It's a reasonable question and I get the question, but essentially we're going to get new stuff whenever we want as a part of this contract.
So you feel like everything that's in this contract will take care of all the problems that we have with IT?
Well, you're putting me on the spot there.
But you're not going to come back in a month or two wanting something else.
No. Okay. I think this is going to really set the organization up well and resolve a lot of the concerns we've had. I think the biggest thing is just having somebody who has ownership, so to speak, of our IT system. Right now, it's kind of a mix and match, hodgepodge type setup, and honestly makes me nervous at times, as we've talked about before. So I think this is basically going to put it in the hands of people who know what they're doing, who can set it up the right way, who will do it efficiently. And then when our staff has a problem, they'll be able to get the help they need in a timely manner and get it done. So to answer your question directly, I think it's going to work well. The only hedge I would put on it is, for all I know, there's some guy sitting in China right now who's going to hack into us and hold us hostage and so forth. All those stories you hear, but their services should greatly reduce the potential of that affecting us. Could something go wrong? Could, but this is a much better solution than what we've got.
Anything's better than what we got now, right? A what if question. What if at some point in time we move out of this building to another facility?
Yeah, it's completely portable. As long as we've got internet connections, People won't even know the difference. They're going to pick it up out of their office and they're going to plug it in the new place, and it's going to be like they were there all along.
Okay, so no cost involved. Okay.
It's all part of this. Yeah.
Right.
Now, granted, we're going to have internet connections and that kind of thing.
Oh,
But.
okay. Thank you, Frank.
Yep.
I have one question. The information about putting our information in the cloud, who owns that data? Do they own that or do we own that? And mainly it's if you were to 5 years from now get rid of this contract and you say, all right, I want my DVDs worth of data, will they give it to you, or is it their cloud? Is it our cloud?
Yeah, so we own the data. We will get the data back if and when we do cancel the contract at some point in the future. So it is ours. It will be available to our staff.
Okay.
No question.
I'm gonna say, I too have had experience with BC3. I mean, well, I will tell you, they have come to our rescue many times on the law enforcement side of it. When computer would go down with software, pick up telephone at 2 o'clock in the morning, they were there, help us with our needs. And I'll tell you, it was very, especially when we had one computer that was hijacked, and our information was already in the cloud, so we were able to retrieve that information. So it's very well worth going in this direction, I must say. With that, I'd like to make a motion that we accept it.
I'll second.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Thank you.
Next, resolution amending the public boat ramp pass policy to adjust the annual pass effective dates.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. Essentially, as you know, the board adopted a formal boat ramp pass policy back in August of last year and really just put in writing the various policy provisions that we implement with regard to that facility. This resolution simply amends that policy and changes the effective date of our boat ramp passes to a calendar year basis. So as you know, right now, they are valid from July 1st to June 30th of each year in line with the fiscal year. This simply changes it to a calendar year. So the passes would be valid from January 1 to December 31st of each year. This change is proposed simply to make it a little bit easier to issue all the passes, both for our staff, but also our customers. If you think about it, when we're issuing the passes in late June, historically, it's warm weather, it's prime boating season, everybody wants to get out on the water, they're anxious to get their pass. This basically just changes it to the winter time when it's typically slower. The proposed dates that are included in here are November the 1st is the date that we would start selling passes to Cape Carteret residents and property owners, or the first Monday thereafter. And then we would make them available to non-Cape Carteret property owners and residents by December the 1st. So other than that, nothing else would really change. Again, I think it's going to make it easier for staff because it's going to be a less busy time of the year. And I think it's going to make it easier for our customers because they're going to have more time to think about this. Not everybody's going to be anxious to get out on the water at that particular time. In terms of the current year, I don't see any budget impact whatsoever because we're simply pushing the revenue collection from roughly the late June, July timeframe into the November, December, maybe January timeframe. So it's still going to credit the same amount of revenue in the fiscal 23-24 budget. So no budget impact there whatsoever. And I think it should be a good change that hopefully will be helpful to everyone involved. If the board adopts this amendment to the policy, we will start publicizing that via the town newsletter, Facebook, website, all those kinds of things, certainly when people call. And essentially the take-home message is that the pass that people were issued that would have expired on June 30th of this year is simply valid until December 31st. So the police department would simply be looking for that sticker for the rest of this year. And we'd probably do a special communication to all the current pass holders just to let them know that as well. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Frank, I got about 3 questions. I got one comment, 2 comments. First, I hope this is the last time we discuss that boat ramp for a while. Are the citizens going to be able to apply online and pay online for the sticker, and will the sticker be mailed to them? And the reason I ask that, we have a significant amount of part-timers that don't normally come down in January and whatnot. So is that going to be an option you're going to offer?
Yeah, that's our goal. We're actually working on that right now. We've got new forms set up on the town's website. We haven't made them live for the public yet because we want to make sure we get it right. But people will be able to fill the form out online. They'll be able to pay with a credit card online. We'll verify the ownership and so forth, and then we'll be able to mail the pass to them. And there should be no problem having that ready to go by November the 1st. We're pretty close now.
Okay. That was my only concern.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, just as an aside to that, I guess really for the public, I mean, we're trying to put as many of the processes online as we possibly can and make it easier for people to pay with a credit card online. And hopefully you'll see some nice improvements on a lot of our processes in the future.
Not to get off topic, but are you going to increase some of those other permitting fees like golf cart where they can do it online, or is it you see that happening?
Well, in terms of increasing the fee, that's up to you all as part of the budget process.
I'm talking doing online fees.
But yeah, we're working at putting everything online to make it easy for people to do
great.
that. Yeah.
Any more questions? All right, do we have a motion?
I'd like to make the motion amending the annual boat ramp pass policy to adjust the annual pass effective dates to what we have stated here.
Second. All in favor? Gentlemen. Next, the resolution authorizing the easement acquisition for Arden Oaks stormwater improvements.
So first off, I apologize to the audience for not having a graphic to put up on the screen to show you exactly where this is. Our large TV monitor actually crashed today, so it is not working. But in the packet, the board has an aerial photo map that shows the location of the easement. It is a roughly 10-foot wide by 325-foot long easement. It runs just to the southeast of the Arden Oaks neighborhood. So there's a large parcel. It's almost 13 acres. It's owned by Manatee Investment Groups. Essentially, on the edge of that property, the town, if the board approves, would acquire an easement that's 10-foot wide, 325 feet long. It would be used to construct a new vegetative swale that would essentially allow for an emergency discharge of stormwater from the Arden Oaks neighborhood out of the neighborhood into this swale and then ultimately into Rocky Run, which is a small stream. It essentially flows from this location down to the large pond feature near Western Carteret Library, then ultimately flows into Deer Creek, comes out by White Oak Elementary School on out to Bogue Sound. This feature, this easement is a critical component of the stormwater solution that we've been discussing for the Arden Oaks neighborhood. As you know, the board approved the purchase of a vacant lot at your last meeting in March. That essentially will become a bioretention stormwater basin for the Arden Oaks area. At the rear of that lot, this vegetated swale would begin and would flow down to Rocky Run. We expect that it would only be used in emergency situations. Could be once a year, could be once every 5 years, could be 10 years, who knows? It really depends on how frequent we get those hurricane type rainfall events. But ultimately, if the town implements this project, we think that we will effectively resolve the concerns that Arden Oaks experienced in recent years in that area. The cost of the easement is a total of $10,823. It's based on a per square foot cost of $3.33 per square foot. That is the same unit cost as the lot purchase that was authorized by the board at your meeting in March. There's some possibility that that total amount may fluctuate slightly up or slightly down. I wouldn't expect it to be any significant variation. We think the 10 by 325 easement area is going to be sufficient. In reality, it may wind up being 8 by 325, or it may wind up being 10 by 340. So to give you kind of an idea of the scale of how it may change, I'm waiting on the final design documents later this week, and we'll know that for sure, but it would be right in that area. So the board's asked to approve the resolution authorizing us to acquire the easement for that purchase price for that area. If the board adopts a resolution, the town attorney will draft the easement and we will execute that at the same time that we close on the purchase of the lot. As I mentioned to you all at your meeting in March, we're still in the process of doing due diligence. Everything looks very promising so far. I don't see any red flags at this point, but we would not actually move forward and purchase the easement and record it until we had clarity that the design is going to be effective, that the permitting agencies are comfortable with it. So I would expect that if everything goes according to plan, we would probably record the easement late May, perhaps early June at that point in time. So I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, and apologize to the audience for not having a graphic to show you, but thank you.
Frank, I don't have a question. I do have a comment, and I just want to thank you for taking this issue up and actually saving the town quite a bit of money with your proposal. I don't think that needs to be overlooked. Actually, you saved a lot of money. So just want to thank you for that.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I hope ultimately at the end of the day, we'll have an effective solution out in this area for probably somewhere in the $125,000 range, which I think is a good outcome ultimately for the community and particularly for that neighborhood. So
we accounted for the maintenance that's going to be required on this grass cliff?
The maintenance would be handled by the town staff, or by our public works staff. I don't think it's going to be too significant. It's probably just going to involve occasional mowing or clearing of any debris that might be stuck in the ditch that we create. So certainly adds a little bit to their workload, but I think is manageable.
I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to adopt the resolution authorizing the easement acquisition for Arden Oak Stormwater Improvement Project.
Second.
I'll second.
All in favor? Gentlemen. And now let's have a town manager report.
Okay, and I apologize. I have got one heck of a sinus infection going on, so if I'm sniffling up here, I do apologize. Pollen just getting me. Several things in the written report. I certainly won't hit on all of those, just a couple of them to highlight for you. First of all, wanted to make everybody aware that the League of Women Voters is hosting a special seminar on local government on Wednesday, April 19th. That's at 5:30 at the Western Carteret Library. It's part of their educational efforts just to educate the residents about how local government works. So they'll have representatives from Cape Carteret, Cedar Point, Bogue, and Pelletier there, as well as just some general information. And so Mayor Baker and I will be a part of that. Certainly anyone is invited and welcome to attend. As I mentioned, should have the recommended budget for you at your May 8th meeting. We've got a couple of budget review meetings set up for Monday, May 15th and Monday, May 22nd. Certainly we can schedule more if you think you need more time on that. Hopefully you'll be pleased with the recommended budget. My goal is for it to address all of the priorities that you all have indicated to me, both collectively and personally, individually over time. So that'll be on May the 8th. Hopefully you'll be in a position to adopt that at our June 12th meeting. We are currently out for bids right now for the street resurfacing contract. I want to thank Ryan for all of his efforts to put that together. The bids for that are due next Monday, April 17th, and we expect to present a contract recommendation to the board at your May 8th meeting, and then hopefully get that work going sometime later in May or June. I did want to let folks know we did receive a request for the rezoning of a parcel on Taylor Notion Road. It's 123 Taylor Notion Road. It's a 2-acre parcel. There's a request to rezone that to R10M. And that's the parcel that was the subject of a special use permit request last summer. The applicants have worked on refining their project goals, and they've submitted that rezoning request. So that will be on the planning board's agenda on next Tuesday, April the 18th. One of the things that we did with the planning board last fall in response to the concerns that were raised is we went through an exercise and identified exactly which parcels in the town would be acceptable for rezoning to R10M, which is our multifamily zoning district, townhouses, so forth. which actually townhouses are the only type of multifamily housing that are allowed in that district. And so they identified a handful of parcels in town that might be suitable. The 123 Taylor Notion Road location was one of the ones that they identified. So that'll be on their agenda on April 18th. Potentially that could come to the Board of Commissioners at your May 8th meeting as well. We are working on the Fall Festival. Lots of notes in here about that, really trying to make it a much larger, significant event this year. I've had some promising discussions with the Carteret Crossing Shopping Center about potentially having it over there at that location. I've still got a lot of work to do, but that's the direction that we're heading. If that doesn't work out, we'll certainly do the best job that we can here on the town hall property going forward. There is a new concert series. Seaside Arts Council has lined up 3 musical performances out here at Community Park. The first one is on Wednesday, May the 10th at 6:30. They're also planning concerts on Wednesday, June 14th and Wednesday, July 12th, and they're free. They'll be right out back here, and appreciate their help in getting that going. There are several other things in here. I'll leave it at that. If you have questions about any of the written materials in here, I'm happy to answer them. Or if you have any questions about anything related to the town, I'll try my best. Thank you.
I was just looking, and I was going to put it on the agenda. I just thought I'd just bring it up as a discussion issue. We all got an email from the lady about reducing the speed on Taylor Notion Road. And since we've had that, I've talked to several people that actually live on Taylor Notion Road and people that are in the neighborhood. And they'd love to see us, if we could, approach DOT to get that reduced to a 35-mile-an-hour speed. So I don't know if y'all had any thoughts or.
Yeah, I do. I discussed it with Frank on the telephone today. I can't support that for one reason, because that road flushes out and prevents a lot of traffic. It's a shortcut, and they can go down here and it congests this area. So the quicker we get it out, and it's 45 from the school, the end of the school out anyway. So I wouldn't be in favor of lowering that speed limit. 35 has worked all these years. I don't see it. I don't see any problem with it myself. Just the quicker we get the traffic, the corridor through traffic out, in my opinion, the better off we are. That's just my opinion now. There's 5 commissioners, so.
All right. Is that all you got? Unless y'all have any questions for Frank on any other issue. If not, then we'll go to the commissioner reports, and we'll start with Commissioner Martin.
Yeah, I just want one quick comment. I'm getting a lot of positive feedback from Bayshore residents about the proposed possibility of sidewalks finally connecting Bayshore to the town that they pay taxes in. Long time overdue. We'll thank Frank and thank this board also for the support, possibly obtaining grants for that. I know David Bigway will be first one to walk on it probably, but looking forward to that. And that's all I have this time.
Charlie?
I just appreciate your work, Frank, this month. All the town staff's work.
Thank you.
I echo everything they just said. Frank, you're doing an awesome job as always, and I appreciate the town staff, Ryan, and police department, what they're doing as well. The Heather and Sandy and Barbara, thank you for what y'all doing. I know you'll be excited to see some new hardware come in and get some better service with your systems. But anyway, maybe they get up and running quickly.
So all I have to say is this is for everybody. We have the Parks Improvement Committee. We met for our first time on March 25th. And just in the last meeting, we discussed the objectives. This board has outlined some objectives for that group. We made sure that everybody understood those. That the key in this is that we are not designing parks. We're just coming up with what works and what doesn't work. And that's going to be presented to this board for this board to decide. we discussed the different types of equipment and different types of things that can be installed in a park. That could be nowadays anywhere from toddler equipment to grills and pergolas and things like that. So there's a full range of things. We also discussed a citizen survey, and this is key to really taking information back to this board on what works and what doesn't. So we're trying to standardize that, get that ironed out. Our next meeting will be April 25th. By the way, we meet the fourth Tuesday at 6 p.m. in this room. Everyone is welcome to join. We're going to be we're finalizing the citizen survey, working on a schedule. I'd like to have this sort of wrapped up by the end of summer, and the data presented to the Board of Commissioners. And then we're going to, after hopefully soon, after the next meeting, we're going to start coming up with going door to door, talking to people, getting information on that survey, asking people what they like and what they don't like. So anyway, that's all I have for that. And
All righty. Well, just to echo everything the gentlemen here have said, the staff's doing an amazing job. And just want to remind everybody about the League of Women Voters. We're going to have the government seminar over at the Western Carteret Library also this Saturday. I forget what time it is, but the young lady who was the Eagle Scout project she's doing on the new walkway there, she's going to be unveiling that Saturday, I believe, if that's right there around 3 o'clock. And the Girl Scouts, who are right up front here, are going to have a big open house on the 25th from 3 to 7 p.m. So if you'd like to come and check out the Girl Scouts, I think they're going to have all their state leaders and everybody there. Very happy to have them here in town. And other than that, I would love to have a motion to adjourn.
Mayor, I forgot one thing. I would like the public to specifically pay attention to the county commissioners. You mentioned libraries.
That's a big
hot point right now. We love our library over here. Contact your county commissioners. Matter of fact, we may need to talk about a resolution. So there's some efforts going on at the county level that I'm not very happy with.
Yeah, it's been in the paper here lately, especially down east, getting ready to lose theirs.
Yeah.
So.
And I know Paxton very adamant about that too. I know you've spent some time with supporting that library. We all have. So just put that out there.
Yeah, stay aware.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And just like you come here, it all starts locally. And I can't thank you guys enough for being here because it's your town. And we're here to listen and do what you hopefully like what you have. Very fortunate, very blessed to be in this little town. So I'll ask again to have a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Steve.
Second.
All right, second. All in favor? Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, staff, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
That was cool, man. I saved that.